I'm Sean Bose, concert visual designer in Los Angeles, California. And today we're talking to Jash Reen, co-founder and creative director of the studio Wolves. Wolves is a visual agency based in Mumbai, India, that over the last decade has grown to be known around the world for their incredible quality of their visuals. They are one of my personal favorite content studios out there right now, putting out incredible work for artists like Excision, Sullivan King, rappers like Lil Baby and Big Sean, and even pop stars like Mariah Carey and Shakira. Many others, too many to list. Not only that, they're a VJ crew that performs at festivals around the world, including EDC Vegas and EDC Mexico and Sunburn in India. You can find them online at Wolves Visuals on Instagram and wolvesvisuals.com. Jash, thanks so much for being on the show.
Dude, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you, man. Like I said, you guys are one of my favorite studios out there right now. The work you guys put out is incredible.
I appreciate it so much. Like that part where you said that you guys are one of your favorites, I didn't expect that to be part of the intro. So yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah.
It's true. It really is. Every time I see your work, I'm blown away. But I want to tell the world about the story of Wolves. But before we get there, what was your life like before you started Wolves? Like, what was your upbringing? What did you study in school? Tell us a little bit about the origin story. I don't think there's anything I gravitated to in school in particular. Like, in fact, Josh was the co-founder along with me. We pretty much played like video games the entire time through school. And then when it was time for like college and stuff like that, I actually studied in English literature because there was nothing else. That's the only thing I couldn't fail in. Like anything else that was a bit more technical than that, I was just not out for it. But I did end up studying audio at one point, and my actual goal was to get into like sound design and like specifically for games again, because it goes back to the passion of games and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of apply sound design to something other than music. Like, there's something that is a different medium, like an interactive medium, so to speak. And I chased that for a while. And I was also a journalist on the side, not much of a journalist, more of like a music writer, just to like kind of make ends meet. And the visual thing was something I would do on weekends, like whenever there was like a free weekend. And that was like to me was like the most easiest thing, like, cause I just picked up Resume and I just had 3 layers on and I had clips from the internet, and I would just go to a club and just jam that out, just because it was like because I had to be doing something with my time, and but that's the crazy thing about that is that's the one thing that I didn't put as much thought into, and it naturally started growing because there's no mandate. There was no like, you gotta, in 1 week, you gotta know this much, or you gotta you gotta figure out how to do this, or you gotta play bigger clubs or anything like that. And as a result, I think it's always been very organic when it comes to like me approaching visuals and Resume in particular. And then Josh, one day, like I for the most part was in Singapore when I was trying to do sound design and writing and things like that. I came back to India for a short while. And Josh hit me up and he's like, because we've been friends for a long time. And he's like, I heard you were doing this thing with like visuals, and I heard that the software that you're using is Resume. So I got Resume too. And like, maybe if you come over, we can like just try a few experiments and see what, just combine knowledge and stuff like that. So we did that. We got a bunch of shoe boxes that Josh's wife had at the time. And like, we just stacked all these empty shoe boxes, and we use that as okay, we got to figure out by the end of the day how we're going to projection map on this. And it took us more than a day, but we eventually got it down. And I think we kind of like, it's like unlocking a new level or something in the game. Like we be like, whoa, we found so many things along the way, and that just the process was so much fun. We just took a video of that, we posted that, and then like one promoter in like maybe like 2 weeks was willing to let us do it, something similar in a club with pieces of thermocol or some shit like that. But that's pretty much the spark. That's like where it's just me and Josh coming up with really like fun ways to use a software called Resume. That was it.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think a lot of us have that story of just like jamming with friends and putting some cardboard boxes up and like trying to figure out like, what is this projection mapping thing I've been seeing on the internet or whatever.
And I also have to mention at that point, the word projection mapping was just like any client or like anybody saw that, they'd think it was like dark arts. So it made me want to know like, yo, how hard can this be? Like, like why is everyone like freaking out so much about it? So it was a good start for sure.
Yeah. And so, all right. So you're hanging out with Josh, which we'll put both of your information down in there because it's the two of you guys, Josh and Jash.
Yeah.
Don't get confused. Hanging out, playing with Resolute. Can you describe the moment that you decided to start the studio, and were you guys making content in the beginning, or were you just more of like a VJ crew when you joined forces?
Definitely more like a VJ crew in the start, but like, we always try to like hack a few things around just to make it custom. And like, I guess making content like anybody would make content, like, just turn on After Effects, make like solid cubes, make them change colors, make them rotate. And I felt like I'd done the most work ever. And I think for us, it happened the opposite way. Is like the more we understood the medium, whether you're like projecting on boxes or you're on like LED walls, understanding the limitations of that kind of shaped the way or the kind of tutorials we looked up, so to speak, on how to make content or like which software to pick up and what cameras to use. And, like we specifically learned it for this medium, So like every time, like there's been tons of shows in the start there where we weren't happy. Like, we tried something because there was no like, especially in India, there wasn't any like previous time, or there was no prep, so to speak. We just like went in there and we're like, oh shit, this is a space. We try to warp our content to fit. But those kind of like rushed DIY experiments kind of like made us like, I would say like it made us understand how to approach content for like live visuals way faster, just out of that urgency.
And so what were some of the big challenges that you faced in those earliest days of, going out, finding gigs and starting to produce content for artists and, trying to be taken seriously?
The biggest challenge that we had is like, we used to use MacBook Pros. That was the challenge. Like, we just thought that, at the time, like anybody starting out, we're like, oh, we have like, sort of new MacBooks. We're good. We go into shows, we'd have a lot of issues with like frame rates and like, running specific kinds of software and things like that. And that's when we built our first rig, and we decided to get a house for it, which is a garage that Josh's dad owned. Like, kind of, so it used to be like a go down where he used to keep his equipment. Josh's dad works in Josh's dad runs a light and sound company. So we asked him if he could use that space, and he cleared it out, and we were kind of like, just us and our Macs, and then became us and our one Windows rig. And I think once we went Windows and we got the right software and everything, it was pretty smooth sailing. The only other issue is I would say is in India, like being in like the sound, it was pretty nascent over here, so like nobody really had like production time. We just had to come up with these concepts on the fly. Like I was saying, we just had to show up and we had to make something happen. So there's many times that we do like quick re-renders on another computer, possibly a Mac, on the other end, and like just throw it into Resolute, and like basically we made the gig space our offices for the shop moments. So I think that part was really challenging. But then once you had clients kind of understand what we were doing and like what we could bring, they gave us a little bit more time, and then things started opening up. Then we expanded our team. We got like more people to operate. We got better machines and just scaled up from there.
So it sounds like you guys were kind of just, in the trenches, figuring this out as you went, gig by gig. Did you find any help along the way? How are you guys learning how to do this stuff
So
in the moment?
I'll say this, like, honestly, there's so many resources on YouTube right now. Like, to me, the fact that Resolume and like people like Yoris and like, they put out these tutorials, these lengthy doc optic, and like they have these Resolume tutorials that are so neatly itemized for you, blows my mind. For us, it was forums. Like, we would get on the forums and we would like just check, like we would run into errors, run into mistakes, and then just check the forums like right away. And just try and get like over one speed bump a day. Like, we didn't like force ourselves to like break into the entire software. But it would always be from disappointment. Like, we do a show and there'll be some limitations. So we go home that night, check out how we could do it better. And then the next time we like, we iron it out. So I think there's tons of resources now, and like it should be an exciting time, I think, for people to get into it. Like even these interviews that you're doing is a resource, like, for us to have one point of like say YouTube, and we have these tutorials and these talks and these interviews about it, I think it would have happened a lot faster.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Can you tell me a story of like one of those experiences where like you were at a show and bumped up against a limitation and how you solved the problem? Is there a story like that sticks out from either the early days or along the way?
Making me go back into like this dark cloud. It's really messing with my mind. I'm like, oh shit, there's this montage that's playing right now. It's been a bunch of them. I think mainly in the start when we were doing projection mapping, the surfaces were never really planned. Like, like it'll be like hanging pieces of thermocol on a wall, or like these pieces that are hanging by a thread or something like that. It'll always move. So it was a matter of like constantly remapping things. And once we got into the LED world, things started picking up in the event spaces here and like abroad. We had obviously like defined spaces, but many people didn't give us a pixel map. Like, we had to literally like make the pixel map for them, especially with vendors here, and then make the content, which would end up being like a day. So I would say I wouldn't point to like one specific gig as much as like one period of time where like no one understood the language, like specifically with pixel maps and getting things ready before the show. That was a perfect time. And like that, like now speaking right now in 2022, it's like all these things are like gospel. Like, there's still a few places that try to crunch these things last minute, but like it's the way of the world and it's how things work. Everyone gets a map beforehand. Everyone gets a creative brief beforehand, and it all happens in stages. So that's dope.
Yeah, definitely. I think the production world over the last 10 years, it's become such a integral part of every show now that, people really are familiar with it and know what the expectation should be. But, even 5 years ago, I don't think that was the case. It was very like, it was kind of not a new thing, but, not as many people had been exposed to it.
Like, I want to say though that when we started out, there was this I feel like Europe in particular, like iSupply and obviously the Resolume team and like Yoris and all these people they had kind of always ahead of the curve. So we would always like we would see their videos and like we would pause. I remember like frames of their videos just to like, and this wasn't in any like intention to do exactly what they did, but just to know if that was possible with the software we had. Like, we're like, are they using one machine? Are they using, are they using a different version of Resolume? Like, what's going on? So I think they were the first to be like doing that somewhere in the world. And that was a very good starting point when there weren't any tutorials or there wasn't any extended help. So I think like every time we saw, and then obviously I think Yoris started making a lot of helpful tutorials about input maps and like how you can approach mapping differently, and like that changed the game completely. So that there was definitely that hurdle. And in terms of like content, if you want to like speak content, like I think there was this one period where the Excision's cat video.
Yeah.
I think Ofer made that. like, I mean, content was already kind of a deal in, but then that got shared everywhere. And like, people were like, oh, how did they do that? And how did they get the surface to look like that? Like, even though there'd been tons of like projection mapping references or LED mapping references, this was the first time that people were like, yo, I want to do this, it was an actual concert. It wasn't just like people like standing and staring at like some ambient music or anything like that. And I think that in terms, like when we're not talking technical, in terms of like content, that pushed people to be like, yo, we need this for every EDM show, anywhere, whether it's India or like abroad. So I think those two factors for me, when they kind of like align, it was a good time to be, it was a fun, creative time to be doing content and doing custom stuff for like live visuals.
Yeah. Man, that is a great tip for people to, you don't necessarily need to wait for a tutorial or something about how to do something. Right. You can just, analyze other people's work and try to dissect it for yourself and reverse engineer it, and then use those techniques to build something of your own. So that's really cool.
It's like the harder way for sure. And like, even if you don't have, you say when you're making content, right? Literally, you don't have to look beyond like the movies and the games you play, or like, just like the visual art that you appreciate. It's just a matter of like taking it. It looks like a lot at first, like anything looks unattainable, but like you take it, you freeze it piece by piece. You give yourself a target in a day, like, okay, today I'm going to learn how to do the background, and I'm going to learn how to do the foreground. And like, you put those pieces together, and like along the way, you'll even get your own style, which is like, I think the funnest part of it, like, which is way more fun than like just following a tutorial like A to Z.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going to end up with your own creation inspired by a bunch of different things that you've tried to learn.
For sure, yeah. Like a lot of these tutorials also, like the mandate is like how to build an outdoor scene in like 5 minutes and stuff like that. And it's like everybody creates a bunch of outdoor scenes, or like how to create Mars, and it's just Mars. Like you got to like take that stuff and then like probably throw a spaceship into the field, or like, like mess it up a little bit and see how your lighting changes and how you can get away with it, really. So that's the fun part for sure.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about content and how that side of Wolves began. Can you tell us a story about some of your early projects on the content side?
Yeah, so like I said, the medium, like when we started stepping into like pushing for LED mapping and stuff, the first thing that we wanted to like get right is like not just throw a bunch of like flat renders onto a screen. We wanted to like match the perspective in every sense. So like the guy, if the stage is a bit higher than you, that we wanna be like feel like you're looking up at something, like, so the camera perspective is like adjusted in that way. It's not just flat renders on flat surfaces. So the whole point was like with the minimal lighting and with the entire set design, you wanted it to seem like, like theater almost, like, like a magic show. Like you can't tell where the content starts and ends. I think a good example of that is like we did this Ferris wheel a merry-go-round for Escape. I think it would be 2019, Escape for Insomniac. So we did like this haunted merry-go-round ride, and like we did it in the right perspective. And we like, I think before that, like prior to that, we'd be big on backgrounds and like, overdoing the scene to the point that it feels like edge to edge, it's filled up. But for that show in particular, we just like we just left a lot of dark spots. And I mean, that changed. Like when we looked at it, it felt like that merry-go-round was there, like, in thin air. So I think playing with that and getting to that realization was fun in terms of the way we create content. And another big thing that I think that shaped our style altogether is that, like, it's not always that being a VJ, you can't like come up with like custom content for like every minute of the show. So we had to find a way around that, and we thought of using like custom frames. Like, so basically, instead of using just like the stock VJ loops on like a flat screen, we started creating like a bunch of like say 5 to 6 frames for the screen. So they're just like content that borders each of the screens, and like instead of just having them be like PNGs or something, we kind of like mess around with the animations on them. And like initially we were a little bit scared because we're like, this is kind of a stupid idea. But then once we felt like personally happy with it, we started like taking bigger chances. I think like Lost Lands, they usually commission us to do a bunch of frames every year, and like I think every year we try to push what goes into that small frame area, like whether it's like a dragon breathing fire, or it's like a snake that moves over the entire thing. Just to give a few examples, but being limited to just that edge is kind of fun for us. And the usability of a frame, like making animated frames, is like, it helps us a lot, because like, in times when you don't have custom content, you can still, or you're using the artists, like the DJs give the content that they give you. That's a whole new world. Like, you can still keep the stage branded at all times, and you can still play with layers and like, really mess around. So I think those two were the biggest, I would say, like the pillars of the kind of content that we create, for sure.
As a let's see, as a small studio and a studio based in India,
right?
What were some of your? I mean, now you're working on an international level, competing with some of the top studios in Europe and America. What were some of the challenges you faced, like getting to that point? Were there any obstacles that you hit, like coming up?
So, I mean, this is also something that happened like completely organically. Like, and I think because our field is like so small, no one has been like particularly like, this is my spot. Like, like no one's been particularly aggressive. It's just that the first reaction every time I meet someone is more like stoked that you also do it and you're doing it a certain way. Because that person was probably on the forums, kind of like figure stuff like 8 years back. And he came up with he or she came up with their own method of doing things. And then you've come up your own way and you're doing it this way. So like the 6 or 7 of us are like, yo, let's, kind of exchange information and like see, like hang out and figure out how we can do this together. So it's like, in a way, it's like the way me and Josh started, just on a larger scale. But the two things that like I was saying, it was like more of an organic jump, was that two things happened at the same time. One is that EDC India happened in India, and Insomniac, the whole core team came down, and Forrest Hunt, who's like one of the coolest people we've met, he kind of like he just straight up like gave us a stage to run. We had no idea who he was or what he looked like, and I think at the time he was standing by the side of the stage and just looking at us VJ, and he just came up to us without any like small talk or nothing like that. He just straight up asked us like, "Do you have visas?" And for US, and we were like, "No." So he's like, "Okay, well, we're going to sort it out, and you're going to come to EDC and you're going to do visuals there." It was that simple, because it was, and ever since we've had such a natural relationship with Forrest. It's just been like easy communication. Like, we know he'll say a bit of what he wants, and we kind of like we're thinking on the same lines, and it's always exciting. Like every show that we do with them. So that was one break into like if you want to say like the US world, or like the international medium. So the international playground. And the other one was Flux Pavilion, who was oddly like one of the DJs that when I was big into like dubstep and that whole wave was starting out, like I was really big into Flux's music, and through a few common friends and like contacts in UK, we were able to like kind of link up with him, and we spoke to him about a potential tour that he was going on and what we could do for the tour, because the main challenge for the tour was like he had a very limited amount of LED that he can take with him in a truck. So we didn't want to, initially when they told us the amount of LED they can take from show to show, we were like, yo, this is not going to, like, there's nothing that we can possibly create for this, for this in each city. And we just kind of dialed back, man, to like, the smaller, like, the crazier venues and things that we made happen in those times. And we kind of adapted this entire show with him. And that was another organic back and forth process, because him and the team had so many different ideas. And like, we ended up making like this entire show that we were really happy with, that we took on the road with us to across, let's say like 60 to 70 cities. And it had like an intro, and it takes you through different worlds. It was almost like a Rick and Morty experience. And those two things happened together, like the whole EDC Vegas thing that Forrest called us in for, and the Flux Store. Like I did the Flux Store 3 months in a bus, and I got off and I did EDC Vegas. So like that was it. Like after we did that whole stretch, like a lot of like other people saw our stuff and like, came and approached us and were like, yo, we saw the content you did for that screen. Can you do it for this screen? And like, it's just as simple as that. Yeah.
Wow.
But nothing was planned, basically. It happened in like 1 year. I would say like 2017.
Okay. And so I'm hearing a couple of things happening inside of there. Like,
I'm sorry if I'm covering a lot of ground, because it's kind of like, it's kind of pouring out of my brain. Like as you're asking me, like all of this stuff is in that subconscious right now.
Yeah, no, this is great. But it seems like, being VJs has really been kind of a core thing that's helped you to stand out and level up with all of your other work, because you understand the medium, you're at shows and seeing what challenges come up, like even the camera angle thing that you talked about a little while ago, like realizing that you're usually kind of under the stage looking up at this. So maybe we use this like heroic kind of low angle thing, and it gives it almost a projection mapped feel, even if it's just a flat wall, because it like feels like it's really up there above you.
You broke that down like way better than I did, and like way quicker. So I think we should have done this, like we should have prepared this earlier, and you would have just condensed all my answers. Yeah.
No, this is good. So so I love that. And then also it seems like, it's been a networking tool also. You're at the shows, you're involved in these productions, and you're started to meet people at Insomniac, and you're meeting artists, and that's then leading you to build this like a reputation around the world, and opportunities to be making content and things like that.
Exactly. Like whether it's for like other artists or other brands, or it's just like meeting people who do the same thing. I mean, that's how I met you pretty much. Right. Like for everyone watching, like I met Sean at the last EDC Vegas, and I needed a ride to LA, like from Vegas, and I was like, actually, this is Sean from who does the interviews on YouTube, and I met you, and like we made that whole contact happen. And I don't think that would have happened online, as opposed to like you doing the stage right next to me, which was like I was watching like your stage the whole time, and you were probably watching mine, because like we were so close to each other. So I don't think there's any better way to like make connections in the industry and like learn from each other, and like like build that community organically.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing that I love about this community. You mentioned also, it's like we're all just kind of nerding out about the same stuff that we're so excited about. Like,
exactly.
So it's easy to just become like, yeah, of course I would sit in a car for 6 hours with you, even though we just met 5 minutes ago. Like that, I know we're into the same shit, and we're gonna have a great time. And I want to hang out with you.
I was so jet lagged that I was like, yo, I'm gonna have to stay awake. And like the whole time I was just wired, like just sipping my coffee and talking to you about stuff that you probably didn't even want to hear about. Like the minute I said Elden Ring, you were just like, like I was like, fuck, here you go, it's about Elden Ring. So I mean that's insane that we get this opportunity thanks to like music festivals. And at the end of the day, dude, like we're displaying our work on the biggest billboard that you could ask for. Like, like so many people are seeing it, and like, and you can try all sorts of stuff, and like people are just standing there looking at your content for like hours on end, and potentially under the influence. So they're gonna like it a lot more maybe. So it's a really good, like, I'm blessed to have that canvas, I think, as opposed to someone who does like offline content, or like, creates content for like web shows or something like that. Like, it's a lot harder to get your work out. You got to physically take it and make a portfolio and things like that.
Yeah. It's it's a cool fucking job that we have, man. It's cool. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. So, all right. So we're in 2017. You get, Forrest is like, get your visa sorted because you're going to EDC around the world. It's also
very interesting to mention that like we had never been to America before that. Like we had traveled. I had at least traveled a bit before that, but like I don't think Josh had ever left the house.
Wow.
So for him, it was like his first, like, he just broke into it. Like he just went across the world. And it's a 24 to 28 hour flight for us. So wow. It is a long jump. Like, the first one was like probably like the biggest shock to our system.
Yeah, that's a serious adventure for somebody if they've never left the area,
Exactly. But like it's that feeling when you get there, like you get on site and you meet the other people involved with the project and like the other crew and everything, that you usually forget everything. Like, then you're just stoked. Like once you're there, you're like, you get to realize what everyone is building. And the first time you walk, like especially with the Basspod at EDC, first time like you walk and you see them like constructing and putting the thing together, it's like that amusement park feeling that never goes away. Like, so it helps. So that's the end goal.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably one of the most interesting environments that you could like land in for the first time in America. That's like at EDC.
Yeah, I always tell Josh, it's like that. It's like that feeling in Jurassic Park when the park doors first open.
Oh yeah,
and like they going through, like it's literally that feeling every time.
Definitely. Oh man, that's such a great way to describe it.
With the music and everything.
Yeah. So so would you say, I guess, so this feels like you're starting to gain some traction at that point. Sick. Was it just all easy after that? It's just like, there we go. The next 5 years, rise to the top.
No, I wouldn't say that. Like, I think everything that I said was like, it was more like our experimentation and like understanding of how things happen and the way we found our style. But then we discovered the pop world and like bigger clients where you're part of like a bigger team. And I think it's interesting to mention here, like one of the first, the bigger pop projects that we did that you were involved with as well was the Shakira El Dorado tour. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're just one content team that's part of like a much bigger show. So there's like 6 or 7 other content teams, and like everyone's given such a specific brief that they have to nail, and it goes through so many different changes. So I think projects like that are also fun for us, but like it's kind of where we like take a backseat a little bit and we're like, okay, we're gonna put those crazy ideas aside for a while. To be fair though, like with time and with the kind of the amazing people that we work with, we've been able to like push more of our creative input into that and like take chances, even with like in the pop world. But initially, I think getting over that hurdle was a bit hard for us because we would feel like something would look cool a certain way, but at the end of the day, you're serving you're creating content for a really high profile artist who has to get, the end product that's in their minds. So for like all these several content teams to come together and guess what that artist has in her mind or his mind was a big challenge back then. So I think that phase started after that because music festivals and like we're lucky with people like Forrest and like even like artists like Excision and Sullivan King and stuff like that, where you can really like, you can have a dialogue with them where you give out an idea and they suggest changes and it ends up becoming this really cool narrative. But with the pop world, it's like it's all time coded, it's all streamlined, and like you got to figure out how to fit the pipeline,
Yeah. And then let's talk a little bit as a studio owner and trying to grow beyond the two of you, which I'm sure is how you started out.
That's something. So like we had like, I mean, back in the day, we had like, when we had the garage, we were able to fit like just one employee in there. But even then, like, I think there were times where we could have immediately got like 3 guys or 4 guys or 5 guys, like, and like everyone from the time we started keeps saying, yo, you got to double your team, like, because pipelines are different now and like people are using Unreal and you got to find like people like churn out scenes quicker and you can get a bigger market. But like we've never done that. Like we've always wanted to communicate with the people that we hire, like comfortably for a month, where we get the same references. The conversations between us are fun, and like everyone feels good about putting down what they put down for a project. So as a result, I would say that we come across these people way slower than most companies do. But when we have someone on the team, it's like they're like, we know that they're a good fit, like, and they'll be around for a while, and like we'll have fun telling stories with them, like creating these narratives, or like discussing what these camera angles could be. So it's like I said, like it's like the same dynamic that me and Josh had. We're very keen to like extend that with the people that we have, and we'd rather be like a more boutique studio where everyone gets it than like floors of a studio where like people are just like fed up and waiting to go home. So that personal touch is something that's always there, and we are involved. Everyone gives inputs at every stage of the project, and we are involved from the start to the finish till the point it goes out.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So I think now, right now we have a team of about like including me and Josh, we've got like 7 people. I think it's about to become 8, but yeah, but they're like people that we really trust and people that we really love working with. So
very cool. Yeah, I think there's an impression and sort of just an attitude in this industry that, especially like with music and visuals, that like everything's so fast and quick, and it's all last minute, and it's too fast and not enough money, and everything's just like crazy. And you guys are like, you know what? Slow down, small team. Let's take our time.
Yeah, let's get this right
and do something cool. And you just find the people that are willing to do that, and it pays off.
There are times like our team, like members of a team themselves, just couldn't understand. Like initially, there was no like we were doing very small projects, so like they were like, why would they stick around with a studio like ours where we're doing something in 2 days that a normal CG studio like would have a huge pipeline for, but what we all collectively understood is that we are the ones that are kind of growing this industry together. We're trying to show them that there's better content, there's more cinematic things that we can do, and there's better narratives and stories that we can tell with like concert visuals. And like once everyone got on board with that, it's like we realized there's a lot more to do here than a traditional CG studio.
Yeah, it's fun. That's always like the battle, right? There's the references that keep coming in are like, high level video games and screenshots from movies and things like that. It's like, you want me to make that in a week by myself? Like,
exactly. And
this took millions of dollars in a big studio to make that monster, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And
so let's meet in the middle here. Like, give me a month, please.
Yeah. I think like scaling to kind of meet that deadline, be like, yo, we can get this monster made. We just have to hire like 5 more people. But then hiring 5 more people who don't get it is just scaling up a problem. Like, you're just going to scale all the mistakes that you would make on that project by not truly feeling and understanding it, like, double. So it's very important to like kind of figure it out, get it right, and then like, hit the ground running.
Yeah. Sure. On that note, what, when you're looking for an artist to add to your team that gets it, what does that mean to you? What do you look for?
Yeah, I think like a big thing is like these guys have to like kind of like video games. I mean, it's nothing more complicated than that. Sometimes it is a lot to ask, because if they've been playing video games like all their life, they probably haven't spent time like sharpening their skills. But we've been fortunate so far that everyone is like kind of on the same level with like the pop, because me and Josh speak like our only way of communication is not like any formal training. It's more like pop culture, like cult films, horror films, and video games. So in fact, like Josh and me, we met each other playing Mortal Kombat. Like back in the day, like we used to like exchange cheat codes and things like that. And that's how that friendship started. And like everything that we visually described since then has been an extension of video games. Even till date, like, for example, when I was talking about understanding perspective, like the latest Mortal Kombat game, Mortal Kombat 11, we took each level design apart. And then there were things that we saw in there that we would have never got from any other medium. Like, the way they handle the depth, because the entire game is a versus, like flat versus like a battle. And you're looking at one camera the whole time. So like how they manage to extend the levels depth-wise to kind of keep it interesting throughout the entire thing. Like there's a lot you can learn by picking your medium of choice and like, tearing it apart. So like people who are on board with that level of communication where we don't have to look at traditional means of like putting a scene together or like understanding how 3D or CG should be done. People are open-minded to that. That's pretty much the first step.
Awesome. Oh, that's gold right there. We're going to clip that. That's the promo. Sick. I hate to keep bringing this time period up because I'm trying to forget about it. But a couple of years ago, something happened to the world that fucked with our industry quite a bit, and all the shows went away, and people didn't need content because they weren't having shows, they weren't getting paid. What was that like for you guys, and what I really think it tends to be a period of like exploration and innovation for a lot of us. So I'm curious, what did you guys work on during that time? So like, did you find anything interesting?
Where it was, we were about to do Beyond Wonderland. Like I was in LA at the time, and like we were just on this thing where we were going from show to show. And I when I heard about this thing happening, like the whole lockdown and everything, I didn't take it seriously. Like I was like, it'll blow off and things like that. But when I heard people were fleeing back home, it all started dawning on me. Like I realized that I was between like switching apartments. So like I didn't have anything ready back home. Like, my plan was to like finish Beyond, get back. And then like I was living with my mom. I was going to figure out how to set my apartment up and then move. But this is a new world where like you can't even you can't contact anyone. Like, you can't get help. You can't do anything like that. So the first thing I did was like I set my destination to come back home, and we had a studio, so I slept on the studio floor. Like I went straight there, and for the first night, and I kind of made up in my head that through this entire period, the only thing that we have set up is the studio. So I'm going to stay at the studio, and since I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by like all the machines and all the stuff that we have at the studio, I used it to like kind of look for new stuff. And like many of us, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people, Unreal is like the first thing that popped up. Like I started seeing like this CG community was kind of like turning towards Unreal because they suddenly had so much time that they were trying to figure out how to do virtual shows, and like how they were trying to like make a new medium for the new normal or whatever it was, So a lot of people just ran to Unreal to try and like make these virtual shows happen. And the same way you're seeing like Resume blow up now, there were all these Unreal tutorials. Like Windbush was obviously like a big one, and there was also Unreal Sensei, and I forget like a bunch of them that like came up, and like of course the forum. And the craziest thing is the whole thing was free. So I got Unreal immediately, and I tried to the first test I did was try to figure out how we can get Resident visuals into Unreal on a flat plane, which was tricky enough back then, even though now like the NDI compatibility and everything is like so way advanced. That took a little bit. And once we figured that out, we started using our same attention to content, I would say, to kind of design levels around them. And we were able to convince a few people to go ahead with virtual shows, which I want to be very clear is not something that I preferred. It's not a medium that I prefer. Like I really love like the live medium, which is why I got into it. So, but at the time I was like, because everyone is using that new normal word so much, that I was like, yo, you got to get into this and you're going to make it look good, like for people to kind of want to watch this or get into this medium. So the biggest thing that I think we ended up doing was pick up Unreal, and with another friend who runs his own kind of his own studio, Varun, we basically put together this interactive format where you can play, you can basically experience a gig, like a virtual gig off a URL. Like, instead of having to like download anything on your system or anything on your phone. And that like coming to that conclusion, I think it was one of those things where the journey was more important than the goal, because we just wanted to know that was possible. But once the world started opening up again, you got which is our first love back, which is like live gigs. It's not that we just tossed that away. It's that we saw like how we could use Unreal moving forward. Like before that, we were just using Cinema 4D and Octane and like these crazy long render times, and which we still do, but like Unreal has opened up that entire, it's like made so many things obsolete. Like you can throw together like full cinematic sequences in Unreal real time. So I think that whole period and that learning with Unreal it was almost godsend for us. Like it also helped us take a breath, stop all the shows, be home, figure this out, and like, move forward.
Yeah. Unreal, baby. It's the thing.
Yeah, I know. I hear a lot of people also getting annoyed with it because they're like, shit, like, because I'm so used to like Cinema 4D or like, and now everyone's asking for Unreal. And I think the reason is because it's just like clients get to see stuff real time and they get to ask for changes more like, faster, which then makes it a very tedious tool. But if you're using it for the right client, I think it's still, the possibilities are like endless. There's also a lot of people right now are doing stuff real time with it at live gigs, where they have like another computer set up with Unreal and DMX lighting and like moving pieces and things like that. And I think that changes the game a lot.
Yeah,
you can kind of build your narrative or your content over the course of a show, like with these preset blocks, or like, you're basically playing Legos live, which is fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. The lines between video games and visuals are starting to blur a little bit.
Yeah, it almost feels like me and Josh are like, it's our world now, like, And obviously that a big factor to like get into Unreal was like also the video game side of things. Like the language it speaks is so welcoming to us, because the way you approach building a level in video games, like I was discussing earlier, is how we were kind of approaching visuals from the get-go. So now it's like actually in a game engine, so we're having so much fun. And like it's actually the same software that they use to make the games that we love. So it's full circle.
Along those lines, you talked about that some of that is being carried out into the real world now. Is there anything else that you're excited about now or exploring that's exciting for like the future, or just is new to you maybe?
So I mean, Unreal is obviously like one of the biggest things in our pipeline right now. That's fun. I hope to get back to building even though like I don't think virtual shows are gonna be like as big a deal, like Web3 is still a bigger deal. Like the multiverse is still a big deal. So that interactive format that we had, I would like to like get back to exploring that. But in terms of like redefining live shows or anything like that, I think right now it's at a good place. Like we just did EDC Vegas, and like, the way the communication that we have with the team and like the level of fabrication versus content to us is like a dream come true. It's like just the right amount of like pieces, to make it happen. So I'm very happy with where everything's right now. But I guess there'll be some speed bump that we reach where we're like, yo, we could do this like, way better. Like, but as of now, it's like everything is, I would say there's more to do with like the way we like, the kind of content we create, like the quality of it. I think electronic music artists and just artists in general are asking for a lot more in terms of like a cinematic presentation, which wasn't the case for a while. So that's exciting, because like now we have to actually direct like actual CG scenes, So, but like for live mediums, so that's cool.
Yeah, the attention.
I should have mentioned, I don't know if you want to cut this, something later, but like one of the other things that happened post-COVID was Sullivan King approached us to do his tour visuals. And like normally we'll always have like someone ask us for a content package in the middle of like doing 3 other content packages. But like we were just getting back to like the world opening up and everything. And that was the first project where for his first tour visual package, where we like took each shot apart. Like we were really hard on ourselves. Like, you know, often like something Josh would suggest, something the team would suggest, I would suggest against. And like, you know, we took Josh especially like really got into like cinema grade stuff and like understanding cameras and like how we can direct each shot, even though it's like a small, you know, tour VJ loop, how we can mess with the cameras and mess with the lighting and the compositing and things like that. And we were very happy with the way that ended up. And like, I think we set that as a precedent for all the other tour visuals we created after. So if it weren't for that break, I don't think we would have stopped and taken that breather to like, you know, figure this out. It would have still been like very quick cameras, very rush scenes. But that was a cool one, yeah.
Yeah, man, I remember seeing that because it's funny. Sullivan King was one of the last projects I worked on before the pandemic. Right. I was working with Imminent and made a little bit of content for them.
Oh yeah, Imminent's sick too. Yeah, I mean,
before their
and sorry to interject. Another the people that we met, cool people that we met through the Insomnia shows is Imminent. Like they're pretty much doing like most of the other stages right now. And they do a lot of fun stuff with content too. So like when you mentioned Sullivan, like a lot of the projects that we worked on, there's always like some other pack that Imminent has touched on at some point. So it's cool to see like their work everywhere as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. But I remember because we did the show or we did some content and they like maybe started touring it around in China. And then that was like the end of 2019. I don't know. Suspicious timing, Sullivan. I'm just kidding. I'm not starting that room. And then, but I never really got to see it. And then like there's like a July 4th Excision show in Vegas, like in 2021, I think. And I had like Sullivan was playing. I'd forgotten I had even done some of that content. So I saw some of it and then I saw the new shit you guys made, and I was like, "Oh fuck, the game is changing."
You should know it's because like it happened in that period. You know, it's not like we just flawlessly dropped these visuals in a week or something. It's because we had that period to kind of reflect on what we could do with tour visuals, and it just so coincidentally helped that Sullivan also had like so many different ideas. Like when we saw the brief that he sent, no two like, you know, visual environments or ideas were similar. Like one was in hell and one was a war scene, and like, you know, so we built a little story in our heads alongside his story of how that would play out, like, you know, like from start to finish, and we broke that up into loops. And like the fact that we were able to do that like in that time period and work out all our kinks was amazing. Then we use that format like, you know, moving forward.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure just the way you said you saw those visuals, we're gonna see something come out from one of these. I'm gonna call it's one of these Unreal kids that is gonna do something like mind blowing for like you know for an artist start to finish, and then it's cool. It's like everyone sees that and then they want to do more and they want to learn from that, and it's cool.
Yeah, it just makes you want to level up, you know.
It's gonna be less about the DJ. It's gonna be like full movies, like yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, they're gonna be scoring our visuals now. You know?
Exactly. That's the new world order.
I got this sick visual concept for your show. Write a new album for it. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah. And every like artist is like so big on doing the package, like, you know, like doing the music and the visual together.
Yeah.
So let's face it, like the attention spans are just getting lower. So you got to like shock them to their courses.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. It's good for all of us that people are becoming more aware of their visual show and really wanting to make it an experience. Awesome, man. This has been awesome. I'd like to wrap it up a little bit with a question I like to add at the end. And just what, you know, for the people watching this who are, you know, maybe starting out or just starting their own studio or something like that, what's like a piece of advice that you might have for them that could help them be successful?
YouTube. Sorry, but just make sure you have like working connection with YouTube and like build that ground up on YouTube. That's it. That's my advice. Like, I feel like there's no hurdle YouTube can't help you, like, kind of jump up. And obviously, like, the more cliche stuff is there, which is like follow artists that you like. Don't just like follow their work and feel like it's unattainable. Like, break that down and like kind of find your own like Frankenstein, like the way you would, you put things together.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's like the more cliche one, but YouTube, mainly YouTube.
So you heard it here. You're in the right place. Just keep watching Sean Bo's videos and you'll be a famous VJ and concert visual creator
exactly.
one day.
Yeah, exactly. This is the start of it. I mean, the fact that you're doing these videos is like literally like the first step. I feel like when there are like tons of content creators that do like shows about like live VJing and things, they're going to be like, back in the day, there used to be this one guy, Sean Bo, and he had this crazy backdrop with like 2 shelves lit different. And like, they're going to do the whole thing and you're going to be like a historical figure for sure.
Oh man.
This is a start and it's exciting.
But seriously though, I think that was the piece you had at the end there. You mentioned it a couple times, but that's my favorite little nugget out of this is watching other people's stuff and really trying to dissect and reverse engineer it and take the pieces out and then combine that with something else to make something next level of your own.
That's right.
Yeah. That's the gold right there. Thank you so much, Jash. This has been incredible.
Dude, thanks so much for having me, dude. And especially considering the time zone.
Oh, of course.
Like, thanks for making it happen. Cheers.
Cheers.